Today I'd like to talk to you about something. You and I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, both of us. And there are some interesting people there and people who have like-minded values to ours and like-minded business values to
Mhm,
ours
mhm,
and people who kind of understand what we do.
mhm.
So I continue to get invitations, as you do, from various people saying, oh, we really should get together because we might be able to merge something really special and blah, blah, blah. I
Right.
tend to ignore everything that comes to my inbox. However, I guess this week I was feeling more generous.
Mhm.
And I said, well, okay, this one guy said, okay, so let's meet. So I said, okay, we had an appointed time for 5:20 to speak for 15 minutes on phone.
Right.
And 5:20 came, 5:30 came, 5:40 came, 5:50 came, and I get a phone call. Oh, I am so sorry, Dr. Gilda. I am just so sorry because I looked at the time and I knew the time was 5:20,
Right.
and yet I didn't get my act together. Okay, so that's step number one, black mark against you. That tells me that I'm not important enough. You call to make an appointment with me and then let me know that I'm not important enough for you to keep it. So that was number one.
Okay.
Number two, he tells me that he does something. I don't, to this moment, I don't understand what he did, but some peer group for CEOs, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody uses the same lingo. And I said, oh, that sounds good. He said, so tell me, what exactly do you do? Now, he was the one who reached out to me. So don't you think he ought to know that by now?
I've been on radio shows where they've interviewed me and they start like that. And I'm like, why are you having me on? If you
That's
don't even know what
exactly.
I do, you know?
That's it exactly.
Yeah.
So I started to tell him that I've been doing television shows and radio shows and media, and I'm a media expert. And during the pandemic, I just wrote this book, and I went on and on and on, and I didn't stop talking. I knew we had 15 minutes if we were going to stick to that time schedule, and I just kept talking and talking and talking. And after I came up for air, he said, well, it was really nice talking to you. I said, well, wait a minute. So what do you do? And repeated the same buzzwords. He
Hmm.
does peer groups for CEOs to make their lives better, especially in small business realm. I said, well, that's similar to what I do, both large and small organizations. I do relationship counseling and coaching from bedroom to boardroom. And he said, oh, and then he goes on to tell me how he works similarly with people's personal issues and whatnot, kind of therapeutic. I said, well, that sounds like what I do.
Well, he probably didn't realize he was competing with you and he was trying to sell to you. I mean, sounds like it to me, no?
It sounded that way to me
Yeah.
too, but
Yeah.
I wasn't letting off. So I
Uh-huh.
said, so there's no, nothing. There were no words. And I said, so do you have anything to say? Is there any feedback? He said, I don't think this is a fit.
Hmm.
And then he went on to tell me what he did with these small businesses, very similar to what I did. And he said, I'm sorry. I should have done more homework to
Yeah.
find out
You
who
think?
you are. Okay, so now
Yeah.
this would not have rung as true as it was because just the other day, somebody called me to ask me if I wanted to publish one of my books with their company. And this was Don't Bet on the Prince, my first
Uh-huh.
book.
Hmm.
So I said, well, what do you have? What's in it for me?
Hmm.
What's the story on this?
Hmm.
Oh, well, we'll put you in touch with our PR person.
Mhm.
I said, okay, why would I need a PR person before I find out what this is all about?
Yeah.
And he said, well, she's the one who handles all the business. I said, okay. He said, so why don't we make an appointment right now? I said, fine. So get out my calendar, put down an appointment for 3 o'clock on some day. 3 o'clock comes and goes, no call. 4 o'clock comes and goes, no call. 5 o'clock comes and goes. I'm just doing my work at my computer, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And finally, 5:30, this woman calls me and she says, hi, I'm from so and so. I said, I thought you were supposed to call me at 3 o'clock. Uh, well, oh, I'm so sorry. Things got a little mixed up once again. I said, so you're calling me about republishing or relaunching my book, Don't Bet on the Prince? Why don't you tell me about some of the things that you've done? I said, wait a minute. You guys called me.
Uh-huh.
Don't you think you
It sounds like
want to
they're all
know?
trying to sell you, and they're,
That's exactly,
yeah,
that's my point. So I have
yeah.
another one coming up because of my generosity this week, and this week it's going to end because I have another story. And this woman also apologized for not having done enough homework on me. And I said, it's always a good idea
Well,
to
how
make,
much are you putting in your LinkedIn profile to give them enough to know what you do? You know what I'm curious. I gotta look at your LinkedIn profile.
yeah, why don't you look at it? Yeah,
Okay,
maybe.
I'm gonna look at it while we're talking because I think it's interesting that they're not knowing more about you. And I think, okay, I am looking at your profile. Well, you're obviously a coach, and from your relationship strategist and media coach, which I think that's very clear. But where's the about section? You don't have an about. Oh, there you do. That's what I would change is your about section
Okay.
because when you look at it, you've got bulleted points.
Yeah. Isn't that easier to read?
Not for me. I'd like it. You might have bulleted points at after a paragraph. I work with so and so people to help them do such and such thing. You know what I mean? I think when they look at this, it's hard. You've got talk about media, amplify coaching, wellness, and leadership speakers. I mean, that stuff. It's not clear that. I mean, you've done so many amazing things. You've
I
been on.
have.
I think it needs to say you've been on every talk show from that's ever been created. That you were you may know me from my career launched from Sally Jesse Raphael day, this or that, but I would put in things that are specific, like, yeah, I know you've probably seen me on Sally Jesse Raphael, Howard Stern, and list 3 or 4 different
Right.
shows. But what I do in addition to relationship coaching and whatever, is I also work with organizations and I help people speak, and I think you have to say it, people are not really very bright sometimes.
Well, they
I
don't
mean,
read.
you know what I mean? They don't. Well,
They don't.
it used to be that LinkedIn was a resume more. You know what I mean? Like you'd put
Yes.
bulleted
Yes.
points, but
Yes.
now it's more of it's closer to Facebook than it used to be, and it's more like people want to know you and they want to know more about you. They're not necessarily going to offer you a job, but they may want to network with you. And before it was just like, how can I find a job on LinkedIn when it first came out, right?
Right.
And it's
Right.
not like that now.